cast your mind back to what this IBM 5170 case looked like when we first took it apart, we've had a bit of a journey. And we took off all the livery, which included the back patch, which tells you some information about the machine. A lot of that might not even be accurate now, but it is very sticky. Also, the numbering for the ISA slots on the back, and the IBM livery, so the front case badge and the IBM 5170 badge from the rear. There are also some other parts we took off inside, and one of those is the little sticky pad that holds the cables that aren't used for the earthing, but we need to clean these up. So crack out the cotton wool buds and the IPA, the isopropyl alcohol variety, and we'll give these a quick clean. You can see by the colour of the cotton wool bud, these are disgustingly dirty. The uniform colour gives it quite a nice look, but it's ridiculously sticky. Now I could almost just stick this back on, but I want some, new sticky stuff. So all this gunk needs to be removed. So some isopropyl alcohol and a craft knife blade. We can scrape most of this glue off, which sort of turns the glue to a kind of goo, which is a little easier to scrape off. And we've got that good enough. Now we need to apply some more adhesive. So this sticky double-sided carpet tape is what I've chosen to use. I've got this in several widths, so I can mix and match to get as close to the size of the badge as I can. Now this stuff is also incredibly sticky, but a bit more manageable, he says. I know, should be using a steel ruler, but this old work plastic ruler is all I could actually find. And it does the job. The edge on these quite thick, so you could almost just go down the edge straight without the ruler. It really makes it go goopy. So the stuff that's coming off this reminds me of the ectoplasm from Ghostbusters. It's awful.
Oh. Ah.
So, same procedure as before, slightly thinner double-sided carpet tape. Trim off the end, get it stuck to your fingers, use my plastic steel ruler, and there we have it, all done. For the metal badges, these is slightly different adhesive. It's a bit more like sort of a papery stuff. But you can scrape this off using the craft blade reasonably well. So with a bit of IPA, a bit of scraping, a much quicker process than the other badges. And there we are, all nice and clean. Same process. Because this is quite a thick aluminium badge, they just don't make them like this anymore. Meanwhile, the case has some rust holes in it still. So, using a bit of tape to back it, some baking powder, a bit of super glue, and a bit more baking powder, and then sand to a nice finish. Then we'll give it a coat of primer. You can see the red oxide that we put on at the end of the previous video. And then ultimately we'll finish it in black. So let's put this livery back on. So this is the front case badge, which is the only one that's not glued. This goes through the hole and then is secured with a spring and a little clip. Nice and easy. And the main case body, which I actually ended up finishing in a textured paint, which was also Rust-Oleum, using the Rust-Oleum's, I think it's stone, which is an almost exact match for the original IBM 5170 case cover. Peeling off the backing, we can put these stickers back in. Now, years of working at a Volkswagen Audi dealership, sticking badges on cars in the late 90s, has prepared me for this moment, allowing me to stick these badges back on without having to put loads and loads of tape down, which I probably should have done because they're not perfect, but I think I actually get them on straighter than they were on originally. Beautiful. And now for the last one across the top of the ISA slots. Make sure we get the numbering going in the right direction. There we go, right way up. And that little sticky thing, I'm just going to use some double-sided thingy tape stuff. Does the same thing. Peel that off. And we can just stick it back on. Almost factory. And that just leaves us with the power supply. Now you remember the power supply from the previous video? The one that came in this case, the battery, destroyed it completely. And the front panel, just doing a diode test, which should be enough power to light it. Not working. Well, we'll leave that for another day. It'll just be a matter of changing an LED. This used to be connected to the fan, which was just twisted in, which could easily be mounted on a plug here. So I'm going to use the multimeter just to check that my suspicion is in fact correct. And it does seem to be the case. This is connected to ground and 12 volts. So we can mount a plug here to power the fan. So I'm just going to give this a clean up because it's covered in some old flux and dust and rubbish, and some of these connections look a little bit crusty, so we might have to reflow some of them. So I'm going to remove the really janky fan connections just by adding a bit of solder and giving it a tug. And do the same for the positive, which is connected to the 12 volts. A little bit more solder in, free it up, little tug. So to reflow some of these, just going to chuck some flux on and just give them a little bit of a reflow, and we'll get rid of the excess flux left behind. Now we just need to fit a little 2-pin connector so we can connect the fan in a more sensible way. So, soldering a socket in, That all looks fine. Clean it up again. There we go. Now we need to do something about these two wires. These are in fact the switchable 120 versus 220 volt lines, and these were hardwired to 110 volts inside. Somebody had again just twisted these together. So it's a good job I didn't just plug it in and power it up and flick the switch. What I'm going to do is the opposite. I'm going to hardwire it to be just 220 volts because I'm never going to use this in America, and I'm going to obfuscate the functionality of that switch. So the switch is now not connected to anything, there's no wires in the board, everything's clean. I'm just going to loosen the screws off, and using a torn off piece of this business card, I can push that in the gap, and there, the switch is now no longer functional. So I'm not going to accidentally switch this in the future, and it should be quite obvious that it's now not a switchable power supply. And just for aesthetics, I'm going to write 220 volts in pen. Maybe I'll use the label printer to sort that out later. But that looks a little bit better. We can put it all back together. Put the fan guard back on. Magic screws that go in by themselves. Put the board back in. And we can then just connect everything back up using our new nice fan header. Screw the board in. Connect the power. Wrangle some cable management. What it used to look like and what it looks like now. So it's a little bit cleaner and a little bit tidier. So now we can put the top back on, because putting the top back on now wouldn't be tempting fate, because clearly everything is going to work perfectly, because that's what always happens, isn't it? It's just a matter of these 6 screws holding the case together. I'm going to plug in a disposable hard drive for load, plug in power, turn it on, and absolutely nothing. So we'll take the case back off, all 6 screws, and looking at the fan connector, minus 12 volts isn't really what we were looking for. So that needs putting on the other way around. So I've just removed the pins and I'm going to put them back in the other way around. That way we haven't got anything weird happening on the 12 volt line. With the help of a screwdriver, just to push this down. This time we're going to test it before we put the case back on. So connect to power. Be careful doing this. If you ever connect a power supply, make sure your fingers are well out of the way. And the fan is working, so that confirms that we have 12 volts the right way around to the fan. Notice the 3D printed cowl here, because the other one was smashed during postage. What else would you call a zone of danger?
Welcome to the danger zone.
Let's clear up the desk, get everything away, and then we can put the power supply back in the case. And there we have those magic screws that do themselves up. So we're looking quite tidy, everything's back where it should be, power supply in, we just need some feet on the bottom. These on the original were cork, just like this. So cork feet at each corner. I'm going to do the same modification I did with my original, which is just put 2 cork pads next to these so that it doesn't scratch your desk. Here's the motherboard, which isn't still quite working, but is, you know, it has been-ish working.
This goes on and on.
But we've gone from this to this in a matter of months. The case all back together is looking much more like it originally did. Thanks for watching, and we'll continue this journey soon.